It's been a while since we had a major patch for Expedition. There's some big changes here, including something that I suspect will be extremely popular. Also, if you're an SSF, or if you like ROG in general, ROG is even better than ever. This analysis of the 3.15.2 patch notes is brought to you in part due to the generous support of my YouTube channel members and patrons. More on how you can support at the end of the video. But for now, let's take a look at what's changing. First, there are some Expedition improvements. First, all of the vendors can now offer item level 86 bases. Item level 86 unlocks certain mods such as tier 1 life on chests, and tier 1 armor, ES, or evasion on shields. This means that you can get the best bases in the game from Expedition vendors such as ROG and Gwenin. Next up, a clarification to ROG in particular. When you're offered the option to remove modifiers, an item pop-up will now show you which modifier is going to be removed. This will help in situations where the lowest level modifier might not be the lowest tier modifier, which was confusing some people. ROG's quality option has been improved. Previously, it offered 1 to 20%, it now offers 10 to 20% and won't double up. And if you like gambling with your ROG crafting, which is something that I definitely haven't done, ever, I promise, you can now potentially corrupt your item with a high chance to get corrupted implicits. This also could brick your item, but hey, it could have +2 gems, and that could be well worth it. Next up, we have a jewel-specific change, where he's no longer going to remove modifiers from jewels, which is good because removing modifiers for the lowest level was really kind of useless when all jewel modifiers have a level requirement of 1. Next up, ROG offering to apply incubators, quality, or anointments is now cheaper. That's good because it was eating a few too many grand artifacts, and ROG in general is slightly cheaper because the more expensive currency of grand is going down, and the cheaper, more common currencies are going up in price. You can now get corrupted or influenced items, more commonly from Gwenin, meaning she's not just going to be about unique gambling, but there could be a lucrative black market for eye level 86 Gwenin bases where you want it to either double corrupt into something good, or you want it to get a useful influence. Danig now offers more lesser, common, and greater artifacts, which is good because most of the time those weren't worth buying. You kind of just wanted to buy the grand from him and the logbooks and the rerolls. The minimum discount is also increasing, meaning that you can get something like, let's just say 0.4 instead of a 0.5 that was the minimum before, which means you're more likely to buy some of his offers. Tujin has also been improved. He now offers more items priced in common and greater as compared to lesser. This is definitely a good change. If anyone has done much Tujin haggling, I definitely wouldn't know anyone who has though, you go through a lot of lesser artifacts and not nearly so many common or greater. Next up, the price of some of the items that Tujin offers has been reduced, specifically those that were priced in the thousands. This is good as very often things like gilded scarabs and larger stacks of currency just wouldn't be worth it because they'd be thousands of artifacts. The remnant modifier that grants more rarity to chests no longer rolls in logbook areas. This makes sense because who really goes to farm uniques and rare items in logbooks? Expedition bosses now drop more loot per remnant affecting them, meaning you want them later in your remnant chain rather than earlier. They drop more currency and reroll currency in higher level areas, meaning doing 84 plus logbooks are probably going to be better. And reducing the area in which you cannot place explosives around is going to be good for quality of life. The visual indicator is something that was asked for in the Bay class, and we're getting it. So that's pretty awesome. Now, onto general improvements, and this is a section where you really need to sit down because we're getting reductions in off-screening. In my personal experience, the most annoying out of all of these here is the Detonation Totem. The reason the Detonation Totem is so dangerous is because Detonate Dead deals a % of the enemy's health. So let's just say you kill the Metamorph that might have hundreds of thousands or billions of health. And then all of a sudden, pop. That little totem you left alive has now murdered you. From slightly off your screen. I don't know how it worked with wider monitors, but with a standard resolution, it was able to hit you from just off the screen unless it was in one of the corners. I'd also like to call out the Baronite Thaumaturge because he's just super deadly. In general, this is going to mean that you'll see more of the enemies and or have an option to interact with more of the enemies before they're able to interact with you. Now, in many cases, with things like the Baronite Thaumaturge, they weren't able to interact until you came into a certain distance. But because screens are not a perfect square, there were points where they'd be able to interact with you and you would not be able to see them, and I'm assuming the point of this change is going to be that they can no longer do that, as their skills are not quite as long distance anymore. I don't know if this will affect players using the Baronite Thaumaturge as a Spectre. The crafting bench will now have recipes to add specific enchantments. There's going to be a recipe for all of the Instilling Orb options, and they're going to be unlocked in Oriath, therefore already unlocked if you get rank 3 move speed, in other words, via Helena. This is pretty awesome, as it means you don't have to worry about RNG if you want a specific enchantment on a specific flask. You can spend the requisite number of Instilling Orbs, and you have it. There's also now a crafting recipe to remove enchants from an item, so if you accidentally enchanted your item with something that's completely horrible, now you can fix that. Monsters with Hex Font no longer inflict silence, so silence jewels aren't as mandatory for all casters. This is good because making a specific thing mandatory is generally bad. Hopefully in the future we'll see something to address corrupted blood as well. Monsters that cast curses now have global cooldowns to prevent multiple of the same monsters repeatedly cursing players. This is something that Octavian specifically called out as being problematic, and I completely agree. So it's good to seeing it getting fixed. Finally, there's an updated description on the Trader Keystone. Storm Rain is finally a playable skill, and there have been visual adjustments to the Transcendence Exsanguinate microtransaction effect. Next up, let's look quickly at some bug fixes. It looks like there are quite a few. Medved is unable to deal damage after death, for real this time. Just kill him faster, guys. I'm sure he'll stop dealing damage eventually. There's a bug fix where triggered skills might have a mana cost if you're increasing mana cost with the items you're equipping. Fixed a bug where spikes created by Earth Shadow did not get increased area of effect when shattered with Seismic Cry. That's pretty unfortunate, but hey, it's fixed. Fixed a bug where rats summoned by the Druidic Dire Familiar raised as a Spectre did not die when the Spectre died. In other words, you can't be the Rat Queen anymore. Fixed a bug where implicit attribute modifiers would block explicit ones from rolling on specific base types. Fixed a bug where patrolling heist monsters something I don't really care about heist. Fixed a bug where Jonah Unchained could sometimes deal double damage. Fixed a bug with a challenge encounter. Fixed a bug where storing items would sometimes tell you that you failed. Fixed a bug where you couldn't purchase partial stacks with Control-Shift-Click. None of the other bugs seem to be super impactful, except for maybe the Lancing Steel one, but I'm not entirely sure. And then moving on finally, there's a couple changes to Royale. First is the size of the island has been increased, so more mobs to kill. Second of all, disconnecting now grants experience from your death if a player recently attacked you. In other words, you can't cheat other people out of the XP by just logging out and quitting. And the Out of Bounds debuff now stacks so that you can't just tank it with certain recovery effects. And overall, these are more really good changes, especially to Expedition. Though for many players, I suspect the changes to Expedition itself, what I'm most excited about, will be overshadowed by the changes to enemies' ability to off-screen you, as that is a common complaint. And in the case of the totems, it was especially insidious, where there was very little that you could do aside of avoid totem maps or make sure to kill the totem. But now my question to you is, which part of these patch notes are you most looking forward to? And if you use the Baronite Thaumaturge as a Spectre, let me know if after the patch you run into any issues. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and if you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. A special thanks to my YouTube channel members and patrons, whose generous support keeps me from needing to accept sketchy mobile game sponsorships. If you want the best way to keep up with my video releases and live streams, or maybe just hang out and chat with a bunch of like-minded people, be sure to join the Discord. You can find all these links down in the description below. Thank you again, and I hope you have a great day.